Jana, we're talking about how to write specific content that your audience is like, that's me.
Oh my God,
Even
you're in my brain.
how did you like
How did you
what?
know that?
I just said that to my phone like 2 days ago. It's difficult to write content that you feel like resonates when you're just starting out, but you're an expert in creating content to teach people how to create content. And the content for you is in HLC, in your course. And
hmm
today we are stealing just a little lesson out of HLC to chat about how to write really specific, oh my gosh, that's me content. Even if you don't have a niche.
Or you're not sure about your niche yet, and so you're kind of tiptoeing around because you're like, that's what happens a lot is like I have some students that come into HLC, which is high leverage content. Thank you for the
Mhm.
shout out, my program. Today's actually the last day of my bonus launch, and then tomorrow we open to the public. So tomorrow, anyone who's listening who's not already on the wait list can join if they want. And this will actually be the last time that I'm publicly have the card open until December. So this is the time to
Wow.
join if you want to join, if you're a regular listener and you've wanted to be in my program. Um, but yeah, so a lot of students come in and sometimes they are people who just don't have a niche, like they're a general health, general like life coach, for example. And they say things to me like, I can really help people reach pretty much any kinds of goals using this methodology, right? My life coaching like methodology, which is totally legit. Like there's programs out there that teach that type of like non-niche specific kind of approach to your business. Or even just like people who are like, well, I'm a wellness coach, but I can work with people of any ages and I can, work on all kinds of wellness goals, things like that. And then I have students come in sometimes and they know that they want to choose a niche at some point, but they're not sure yet, like what that's going to be. They have some ideas, but they're not quite sure yet. They're kind of experimenting, and that's also super legit. And it's not a reason to not start creating content. Like you want to start creating content to get the clarity and the confidence and the clients, frankly, that you need in order for this cycle of like getting clarity and confidence in clients so that you can feel more confident and, know you have experience with clients and whatnot. And so I have a lesson inside that is literally all about how to create content that is very specific and resonant for people, even if you don't have a niche. And, honestly, it works for people. I tell every one of my students to watch it, even if they have a niche and they're clear on their niche, because it gets into like the ideas of like how specific do you need to be in your content in order to really capture people's attention and stand out in a crowd and, get people reading your content to begin with and understanding what it is that you help with, right? But it's especially good for people who just like aren't feeling like they keep getting advice from people like, oh, your content's not specific enough, it's too high level, and they're thinking, but I don't have a niche. Like I can help people with a lot of things, and I don't want to limit myself by saying I help people of this type of person with this type of outcome. Like I can work with all kinds of people. So it's been really helpful, and I figured we could talk a little bit about the framework that I teach in there today and basically give people an idea of how to write content that'll get you clients, even if you have been struggling with that because you're not super specific with who you can help and who you want to help yet. So it's
Great.
kind of the deal.
Do it. So
Yeah.
what do I need to know first?
Yeah. So I think that the reason why you're always getting that advice, if you're someone who's always hearing that from people, like, oh, get more specific or have a niche, right? Be specific with who you help and how you help them. And like, you can't get too niched in the online business space and in the coaching space, meaning you can't get too niche, like you need like a tight niche. The only reason people are saying that to you is because they want you to succeed and they're looking at your marketing now, whether
Mhm.
that's the bio, your link in bio describing what you do, maybe your website copy that talks about like how people can work with you. Maybe it's a blog post, maybe it's an email or a social post. They're looking at that and they're thinking, oh, it's way too high level and it's not connecting with anyone because it's not specific enough.
Mhm.
And so people who give you the advice to niche down, like you and I, we both agree, like we love a good niche. Like
Mhm.
I definitely think it's better to have a niche than not to, but my way isn't the only way. And I know a lot of successful coaches, and even service providers too, who aren't as niched, who still do great, right? So, but the reason they're saying that isn't because they want you to niche, it's because they want you to be able to be specific enough in your content to get clients. Like, so I think
Yeah.
that's the first thing to know is like, don't resent that advice, just understand like where it's coming from. You know what I mean? Um, do you have, I'm just curious, do you have students in your membership who you feel like are like not specific enough yet with what they do for their Pinterest to be working? Do you ever feel like that's
I
a
feel like
barrier for people or?
I feel like most people who are doing any sort of marketing and they've never done it before are never specific enough.
Mhm.
And this is one of the things that I talk through quite frequently in like office hour calls. And I've been adding more specific lessons to the membership lately to help with this
Yeah.
of like, okay, like who are we talking to? Or like I've been doing a lot of audits lately for food bloggers.
Mm.
And I came up with a list of like 13 different keyword types you could use today because I keep having to like reiterate this in all of these audits of like you can do something other than lemon piccata for your pin title. You can do something like lemon piccata, an easy 30-minute meal,
Mhm.
or kid-friendly meals for fall, lemon piccata, like whatever it is. I
Yeah.
don't know that kids would like lemon piccata, but still.
Kids
That
with a more
being
sophisticated
said,
palate.
they it is something that my students struggle with quite frequently, especially when they're just starting out because they don't know,
Mhm.
I think, what the options even are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So sometimes it's like a resistance to getting specific because they're thinking, or you're thinking like, I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to like rule anyone out. And like what you just mentioned is a good example. Like if someone writes a piece of content about lemon piccata, whatever, that's great for like, big families or something, they might be thinking, oh shoot, but then people who only have were cooking for like two people, this recipe would be great for them, but they're going to think it's not for them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of inner dialogue I know that sometimes people have. So that's actually a really good example. So the way that I teach a concept inside of this lesson in HLC, that's how to create resonant, specific content without having a niche, or even if you don't have a niche, or just even if you like struggle getting specific. Um, I teach this concept called the specificity spectrum.
Hmm.
And I encourage my students who are going to be writing blog posts and also breaking their blog posts down into smaller pieces of content, right? Like emails, social posts, Pinterest pin titles, things like that,
Yeah.
to think about their audience in three parts. And I use like a kind of a bullseye to kind of illustrate the idea here. And in the middle of a bullseye is an arrow right in the middle part. I forget what color that is, but right in the middle. Is it blue in
Yep.
the middle? Whatever.
Red.
And so on the inside, in the innermost circle, you have your what I call your matchers. And then the next people out in like the next circle around are the correlators, is what I call them.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
people on the outside I call amplifiers. And we're not going to really talk too much about amplifiers today, because it's kind of a different part of the topic, although we could get to it if we have time. But the matchers and the correlators are really the ones that I like people to think about when they're thinking about how specific to get in their blog posts and in their content.
Okay.
So basically, the matchers are people for whom the examples and the specifics that you put in your blog post, right? And when I say blog post, you can think of it as any kind of content, really, really. It could be a podcast episode. It could be, like I said, a social media post. But I teach blogging, so a lot of times I'll use the word blog. I teach conversion blogging, right? So the examples and the specifics that you put in your blog or your content closely match the day-to-day experiences and struggles and desires of those matchers. So they
Okay.
hear you say something like, um, you're not getting enough sleep at night. And so, you go into the office and you're sitting in your office and you walk out into the kitchen for a second and you catch like three people who work for you in a conversation and oops, they didn't know you were around the corner and they're talking about how you used to be like a good boss and now you're so grumpy and you snap at them all the time and they're afraid to ask you questions when you're delegating that would make it so that they could get the job that you're giving them right the first time.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh my God, like, and your face turns bright red. They don't see you, but you're like mortified. And you wish that you could be like that person who you were a year ago when you were getting better sleep, kind of thing. So it's the kind of content that's so specific that it just matches the day-to-day experiences, struggles, desires of your ideal person, right? Who in this case might be like an executive or like a mid-level manager who's not getting good sleep and wants to get better sleep so they can be more productive, better boss, get promoted, things like that. So those people, the matchers, they're going to immediately see the relevance of this solution in their like specific desires, right? That I just mentioned.
Right.
And that is going to build trust and help them feel like you get them, right? And it builds demand for your offer. Then you have your correlators, and those are the people who are further out in the bullseye, remember? And so their problems and desires and goals might be different in terms of the day-to-day experiences they have, but the examples and the specifics that you give in your content allow them to understand what it is that you do and help with and connect with it in a way that they otherwise wouldn't, right? So let's say someone is reading that blog post and they are an entrepreneur who works at home like me, and the only employee I have is my dog, right?
Yep.
Um, so I didn't catch her in the
Mhm.
kitchen talking about how grumpy I was today. But if I'm not getting good sleep and I'm noticing that it's having an effect on like for example, maybe I had a launch and the revenue was really low because I didn't have the energy to write as many good emails as I should have because I hadn't been sleeping really well for months, you know?
Yeah.
I'm still going to understand because you talked about a specific scenario that I can imagine happening in my mind. I can feel the heat rising in the face of that executive that came around the corner and heard her three employees complaining about her, you know? But if you were just super general and you were like, you're not getting enough sleep, you know, you're not as productive at work, you're not as good a manager, I'd be like, you know, or even like you're not as good at, you know, you're not getting great sleep and it's affecting your income.
Yeah.
You know, so those correlators, even though they might not be the executive who goes to an office and, you know, goes into a kitchen with her three employees complaining about her, still can connect with that story. And so, what you're talking about easily correlates. That's why I call them the correlators with they correlate those things with the problems that they want to solve, basically, right? I'm looking at my
Mhm.
slide here and I'm confused, but so they quickly recognize like that your expertise and your frameworks and things, because they're going to keep reading that blog post because it hooked them in with that story.
Right.
They're going to learn about your program and see that it can help them too, even though they're not that like corporate executive. They're an entrepreneur with, you know, big goals and they need sleep to hit those goals, right? So that's why I teach this, like I said, like this correlators, or excuse me, this the matchers and the correlators. And it really clicks for people when I teach this way because it helps them see that it's okay to get specific. You're not going to turn off people who can see that what you're doing will help them too. But you are going to, it's not even like you're going to turn them off with content that's too generic. It's just that they're never going to care about it,
Yeah.
right? They're never going
It's
to
gonna,
connect with it. It's going to
they're
be
gonna
like
scroll
white
right
noise.
past.
Exactly. White noise, right? If you don't get specific. So that is my little rant about that. Yeah, so that's how I teach it. And there's more to it, obviously. It's in that lesson, but that's essentially my advice in that situation is you should still get specific in your content, even if you aren't niched or really super specific yet with who you help or like just basically what your niche is, because that's the only way to get attention of anyone is to be specific, really. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I really love doing really specific content. I know when I do really specific content on YouTube, for
Mhm.
example, I'm probably not going to get a huge viewer base on, one specific
Right.
video because I'm talking to a really specific audience. And then everyone else that's in the audience is going to be like, oh, I'm not a teacher, so I'm not going to watch that video.
Yep.
I'll wait for her to release a video about artists and then I'll watch it, or
Yep.
service providers, or content creators, or whatever.
Yep.
And there are different audiences that I notice when I do this. I have a higher view rate than others. So my blogger video, for example, had a lot of views on it, whereas my
Mhm.
teacher video had minimal views on it in the first month. And that I think that's to be expected, but it also just shows kind of who's in your audience specifically. So as you're creating this content, pay attention to which pieces get more engagement, get more views, get more saves and shares.
Yep.
And then you can really start to tailor future content to those people,
Yep.
especially if you notice that that content is leading to conversions.
Yep.
and then you
Yep.
can really double down. So the going back to the conversation I was just telling you about, I guess that wasn't a conversation. We were having a conversation about the food blogger specifically I was doing an audit for today. I noticed that a lot of her top pins had really specific descriptors in the titles,
Hmm.
um, not in the titles, in the text overlays of the pin. So one of my suggestions is to add those descriptors to the titles as well, so the title gets indexed for that keyword.
Yes.
Or it just helps to further index that pin into more areas on the platform, more keywords on the platform.
Yep.
And it's just really simple things like easy, juicy, tasty, like done in 30 minutes. Very specific, not, no, let me take that back. Not very specific in a lot of cases, very specific in a few cases, but giving her that advice will allow her to now go test it and see if she can reach more of the people in
Hmm.
that audience.
Yeah.
This person's audience is very specific to moms who
Hmm.
are looking to cook meals with very few ingredients quickly that
Yep.
are healthy.
Yep.
So we kind of have a few layers here, and um, her food meets this need. Now we have to meet the audience where they're at, and
Hmm.
by meeting the audience where they're at in this case, whether it's doing blogs or long form content on podcasts or whatever, you're talking to people, an
Yep.
audience. You're
Right. Like real
you're trying to
humans.
get more specific. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that took me a long time.
No, I get it. It makes sense. Yep. Yeah. Um, and that's a great example too. And I find myself in that situation. Like I, whenever I hear people talking about like moms, this is for moms, this is for moms, like even though I'm not a mom of humans, I don't like tune out necessarily if I'm interested in the rest of what they're saying because I
Yeah.
figure like it can help me too. Like again, the food thing, like if there's a recipe that I see, maybe let's say she took her blog post and she turned it into like a graphic on Pinterest, let's just say, or in her social feed, or I get an email in my email box and it says, um, easy chicken piccata recipe that you can make with like only 5 ingredients, or easy recipes with 5 ingredients that are great for, kids or something like that, that are healthy
Hmm.
and great for healthy and like kids like. I might still read that and I might still be interested because to me, like a recipe with 5 ingredients or less um, is like exactly what I want. Like I'm not going to create things at home. I always say that I'm really good at assembling, not at cooking.
Yeah.
But like if I'm going to cook something, it's definitely going to be, I'm always looking for things with fewer ingredients. It's always my thing. So I'm probably still going to be interested in her work in general and probably even like follow her because I know she has recipes that are 5 ingredients or less and are healthy. And
Yeah.
even if she's saying they're good for kids, I'm like, fine, that's great. But like my husband's a picky eater, so it probably means he'll like it too, you know? Um, so that's a great example. And the other thing did you have anything that you want to say that about that? Because I wanted to share an exercise that people can try too, but
No,
I
go
want
for
to
it.
plow over what you're saying.
Nope, go
Okay.
ahead.
Um, so I'm going to give a quick story. I had a student, an HLC student, a life coach, who when she came to me with her blog content plan, one of her topics that she was going to write about was that people have that it's a problem type of piece of content,
Hmm.
which is one of the types of content I teach people to write about. And she said the problem she wants to write about is that you're keeping yourself small.
Mm,
And so her target audience is like midlife women. So she's got kind of a niche, but it's more like a target audience there. And she wants to write a blog post about you're keeping yourself small. And when people run their topics by me, I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of like I've trained my brain to run it through what I call my score and select process, which I teach inside of HLC too. But I'm thinking, is this going to feel relevant to her audience? And right now I'm thinking maybe not because that's very like generic and high level. It could mean so many things.
yeah.
And her brain, she's thinking, oh yeah, it could mean so many things. That means so many people are going to want to work with me so that they'll stop playing small and get what they want. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. People see that and they just kind of tune it out because they don't understand what it could mean for them specifically, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if also if it's aligned with her offer and also if it's going to be easy for her to write. And when it comes to easy for you to write, I find it is hard to write a blog that's meaningful to people when your topic is so general. So I'm like, already I see two red flags with this topic.
Yep.
So I start asking her questions, and we're going to use the what I call the day-to-day exercise. I have two exercises in this lesson about writing specific content without a niche. It's the day-to-day exercise and the why behind the why. The day-to-day one is basically like, okay, what does playing small look like literally in literal situations for your person, a midlife woman, from the time she wakes up in the morning all the way to when she goes to bed at night, right? So maybe she wakes up and, something happens in the morning that is an ex example of this. And then she goes to the post office and she's in line and somebody like says something to a little girl that's like, "Oh, you're such a pretty little girl." And she really wants to say something like, "And I'll bet you're really smart too. What are your favorite subjects in school?" Because she thinks that people shouldn't talk about the looks of children and, like especially young girls.
Yeah.
But she doesn't say anything because she's keeping herself small, right? So she's not making that impact in the world that she wants to in that way. And then later on, she goes home and she's been thinking all morning about how she really wants to she has creative urges, like she wants to learn how to be a better painter. And she saw something that made her think about oh, wanting to go get painting lessons. But then she thought, well, that's not a very, productive thing to do, so I'm not going to do it. That's a way she's keeping herself small. So my client, Sheila, is going through the day to day and she's coming up with these situations. And I'm encouraging her to think about things her clients and people in her audience have told her happened to them, right?
Okay.
And so we uncover this idea that one of their problems, that is a more specific version of you're keeping yourself small, is that you're feeling creative urges and something is holding you back from following them. Because she's had clients who wanted to become better painters, she's had clients who wanted to write books, but they weren't doing it. And so now we have a content topic, a blog topic that actually is specific enough.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. You're feeling these creative urges to paint or write a book or do something like that, but something's holding you back and you're not following them. You're not doing it. Let's talk
Hmm.
about how you can solve this problem, right? So that's an example of really thinking and maybe even journaling if it's helpful for you on your ideal person and what things happen based on real stories you've heard and what you might imagine might happen and maybe what's happened to you as well in a day in the life that can help you uncover things to write about that are much more specific and resonant,
Hmm.
right? Again, this can work even if you don't have a niche, right? So that's the exercise I wanted to share. I'm talking a lot, sorry.
Anytime that my husband and I are talking about anything where it's like a deeper discussion, he's like, okay, or like I'm trying to problem solve something, he's like, okay, what, like, what's behind that? Like, go
Mm.
deeper. Like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
now go a little further down. Now go a little further down. He's like trying to
Yeah,
get these to
like
the
pulling
root.
pulling the onion back.
Yeah. That
Yes.
kind of reminds me of that. The
It
why
is. I
behind
mean,
the
it is
why.
like that. It is like that. Yeah. And it takes a little time to do it, but it's so worthwhile because midlife women don't stop and read a post called "You're keeping yourself small." They read a post called, um, you want to write a book or sell your art, but you're not doing it. Let's talk about why.
Yeah.
Something's in your way. Let's talk about why. Yeah, I do actually. That's what's happening for me. What are her ideas about how to get this going and stop being afraid to start?
So
Yeah.
good.
Mm, good
So
stuff.
good. I
Good
know.
stuff. And most of my program, high leverage content, is very actionable. It's here's a worksheet, do it. Great. Now
Mhm.
here's your content plan. Let's start, brainstorming 10 ideas for each, narrowing them down.
Yeah.
Excuse me, narrowing down them down with the score and select and then plugging in your topics to your content plan. I have outlines for people to write the actual blog posts as well, of course. But there are some chapters here and there that I call the nuances chapters
Hmm.
that are kind of optional. Like if you already are specific in your content and you don't want to watch this one, for example, you don't have to. You can still get the result of high leverage content, which is that you'll have a capsule blog library that you
Yep.
can use all up and down your marketing, for months and years that'll convert clients. But these nuances videos throughout are my way of giving people who might have specific kind of needs or blocks that are in the way, giving them what they need to break through those blocks and not end up with a blog full of, blog posts that are like, you're keeping yourself small. And, all the high level gobbledygook words that go into a blog post like that don't mean anything to anybody. So love you out there, life coaches, but some of you all are esoteric in your content and that doesn't sell.
And it's probably why your content's not getting very much engagement on Instagram or
Right.
TikTok or
Right, right. Or people are like either reading it and being like, what did I just read? I don't get it. And like moving on with life, not booking a call with you. You
or not
know?
even getting like two paragraphs in.
Exactly. Right.
Paula's picks. So Paula says, this is awesome because I'm a generalist and have no plans to niche. This is good.
Interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. So you don't have
Yep.
to, that's great because you don't necessarily need to pick a niche, but you can still talk to specific people with specific problems.
Exactly. And I created this inside because I do have people like Paula, for example, in my audience. Like I have a lot of like general life coaches who really
Yeah.
are, they could help you really with a lot of different types of goals in your life. But again, I always when I have people who are resistant to this idea, sometimes I say to them, you hired me because you wanted to learn how to create a capsule blog library because you didn't want to
Mhm.
have to blog all the time every day for the rest of your life. You're not a blogger. And you hired me because you wanted those blogs to be conversion blogs that are going to get
Yeah.
you clients and structured in the right way to get you clients, right? If I had said to you, like, oh, I'm a marketing coach and I can help you with anything in your marketing, and I can help any kind of business owner with anything in their marketing, would you have hired me? Because it's true. I mean, I could help you with a lot of other things, and I do actually help with a lot of other things other than just a blog inside HLC. But, people need something to get their teeth into. They need to know
The
what it is
same
that you're
with
actually teaching them to do.
It's the same with the Academy. It's a Pinterest
Exactly.
program, but inside there's like 15 on-demand course starting points of like things you could do. Most of them related to Pinterest, some of them are not.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just like not my life's work so far, but like the last 5 years of work that I've been doing.
Hmm.
I've just like, there's so much value in what I do every day that I feel like it deserves a home so I can stop
Yeah.
having to recreate the same thing over and over and over.
Hmm.
And I know other people could benefit from it. So
Right.
in it goes.
Right. Yep. That's a great example as well of like being willing to niche your business really, right? That's like
Yeah.
more about business so that you can get specific in your content
Yeah.
and get people in your program. But it's like with Pinterest, like with any type of marketing, like if you don't have good messaging to begin with, if you don't have good content, right? It's not necessarily going to work. And so you're teaching people lots more than just Pinterest in the program too. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, there's things that you just want to have a place to share with your community that might not be directly Pinterest related, but are
Yeah.
marketing related. So yeah.
Oh, Dawn says good morning. Dawn and I share
Hey,
a
Don.
name.
Morning. You share a what?
Dawn and I share a name. Her name is Dawn Renee. That's my
Oh,
middle name too.
yeah.
I don't know
Yep.
if that's actually her middle name or if that's her brand name, but hi, Dawn.
Hey, Don Renee.
Um, well, we don't have another topic scheduled for next week. We're gonna get better about getting some topics scheduled, but Jana's launching and I'm in the middle of just like life. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
get some more topics scheduled. And if you are interested in Jana's program, she is opening cart to the public tomorrow. So if you're not on her email list, you should be.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Totally.
I'm in it. I'm working on outlines for my own content for a new
Yeah.
program I'm launching.
Yes.
So, yeah, get
Which
on
is
it.
exciting.
Okay. Well,
Right.
we shall see you all same place, same time next week. Until then, bye for
Au
now.
revoir.
Or as the Dutch say, doei doei.
Do we?
Doei doei.
Oh.